The Beast in the Blizzard. It all started with an ambitious expedition into the Himalayas. Our group, a mix of seasoned mountaineers and eager adventurers, aimed to conquer a remote peak that few had dared to climb. The journey promised both peril and glory, but what we encountered was beyond any of our darkest fears. Our team consisted of 6 members: Raj, our experienced guide; Emma, an enthusiastic climber and photographer; Tom, a veteran mountaineer; Lisa and Mike, a couple with a passion for adventure; and myself, a journalist documenting the expedition. We were well prepared, or so we thought, for the challenges that lay ahead. The first few days went smoothly. The weather was clear, the views were breathtaking, and our spirits were high. We hiked through picturesque valleys and camped under starry skies, enjoying the camaraderie and the thrill of the climb. But as we ascended further, the weather began to turn. On the 4th day, a fierce blizzard swept over the mountains, forcing us to set up camp early. We huddled in our tents, the wind howling outside like a ravenous beast. The temperature plummeted, and visibility dropped to near zero. We decided to stay put until the storm passed, but little did we know, the real terror was yet to come. It was late at night when we first heard it, a low, guttural growl carried by the wind. At first we thought it was just the sound of the storm, but the growl grew louder, more distinct. It was unlike any animal noise we had ever heard, and it sent shivers down our spines. Raj, who had grown up in the shadow of these mountains, looked particularly uneasy. "There's a legend," he said, his voice barely audible over the storm. "A creature that roams these peaks. The locals call it the Yeti." We laughed nervously, dismissing it as a campfire story to scare tourists, but Raj's expression remained grave. "I've never seen it myself," he continued, "but I've heard stories. They say it comes out during storms, when the mountains are at their most unforgiving." The growl came again, closer this time. We fell silent, listening intently. The sound was now accompanied by heavy footsteps, crunching through the snow. Emma, always the skeptic, unzipped the tent and peeked outside, her camera at the ready. "There's nothing out there," she said, but her voice wavered. "It's probably just the wind playing tricks on us." We tried to settle back down, but sleep was elusive. The growls continued, and the footsteps seemed to circle our camp, always just beyond the edge of visibility. Hours passed in tense silence until finally, the storm began to subside. We emerged from our tents, exhausted but relieved to see the first light of dawn breaking through the clouds. Our relief was short-lived. The snow around our camp was disturbed, with large, deep tracks leading away into the wilderness. The footprints were unlike any we had ever seen, massive, with an odd, elongated shape. "Could be a bear," Tom suggested, but he didn't sound convinced. Raj shook his head. "No bear makes tracks like these. It's the Yeti." We decided to break camp and continue our ascent, hoping to leave whatever had been stalking us behind. But as we climbed higher, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. We moved quickly, speaking little, each of us lost in our own thoughts. That night, the blizzard returned with a vengeance. We were forced to take shelter in a small cave we found nestled in the mountainside. It provided some protection from the elements, but the growls and footsteps returned, echoing eerily through the cave. Lisa clung to Mike, her eyes wide with fear. "What if it follows us?" she whispered. "It won't," Raj said, though he sounded uncertain. "We just need to keep moving." The night dragged on, each minute an eternity. Just before dawn, the growls ceased, and the footsteps faded into the distance. We emerged from the cave, hoping to put as much distance between ourselves and the creature as possible. As we climbed, we found signs of the Yeti's presence everywhere. Broken branches, claw marks on rocks, and more of those unsettling footprints. Emma documented everything, her skepticism giving way to a morbid curiosity. On the 6th day, we reached a high plateau, a desolate expanse of snow and ice. It was there that we found the remains of another camp. The tents were shredded, gear scattered, and bloodstains marred the pristine snow. There were no bodies, just the lingering evidence of a violent struggle. Raj's face turned ashen. "We need to leave," he said, "now." But it was too late. The blizzard closed in around us once more, cutting off our retreat. The growls returned, louder and more aggressive. We huddled together, weapons at the ready, knowing that we were no longer just climbers, we were prey. The Yeti appeared at the edge of our camp, a hulking silhouette against the swirling snow. It was enormous, easily 8 feet tall, with matted white fur and glowing red eyes. It moved with a terrifying grace, each step deliberate and powerful. Tom fired a flare gun, the bright light illuminating the creature for a brief moment. It roared in anger, a sound that shook us to our cores. We scattered, hoping to confuse it, but the Yeti was faster and more cunning than we had anticipated. It seized Emma, lifting her off the ground as if she weighed nothing. Her screams echoed through the storm as the creature disappeared into the blizzard with her. We chased after them, but the snow and wind blinded us, and we quickly lost their trail. Desperation set in as we searched for Emma, calling her name into the howling wind. Hours passed, and hope began to fade. Just as we were about to give up, we stumbled upon a small cave, partially hidden by a snowdrift. Inside, we found Emma, alive but gravely injured. She was barely conscious, her body covered in deep gashes. It wanted me to lead you here," she whispered, her voice weak. "It's hunting us." We carried her back to camp, our minds reeling with fear and confusion. The storm showed no signs of letting up, and we knew we were trapped. The Yeti had been toying with us, driving us to exhaustion, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That night, we fortified our camp as best we could, knowing it might not be enough. The growls grew louder, closer, and we could see the Yeti's glowing eyes watching us from the darkness. It was only a matter of time before it attacked. In the early hours of the morning, the Yeti struck. It tore through our defenses with ease, its massive claws slashing through tents and gear. We fought back, but our weapons were useless against its sheer strength and ferocity. One by one, it picked us off. Raj was the first to fall, his body flung aside like a rag doll. Mike and Lisa tried to run, but the Yeti was too fast. I watched in horror as it dragged them into the blizzard, their screams quickly silenced by the storm. In the end, it was just Tom and me, back to back, facing the inevitable. The Yeti circled us, its growls reverberating through the air. We knew there was no escape. As it lunged at us, I closed my eyes, bracing for the end. But instead of the expected pain, there was a deafening roar, followed by silence. I opened my eyes to see the Yeti retreating, wounded by a lucky shot from Tom's flare gun. We didn't wait to see if it would return. We gathered what little we could and fled, stumbling through the snow and ice, driven by sheer terror. By some miracle, we made it back to civilization, our bodies and minds scarred by the ordeal. The legend of the Yeti is real, and the beast still roams those frozen peaks waiting for its next prey. We escaped with our lives, but the memories of that encounter will haunt us forever. And for those who dare to venture into the Himalayas, remember this. Sometimes the legends are true, and the monsters are very, very real.